then the NBA playoffs, and like a surprise winner from the Kentucky Derby. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove Podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me?
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Podcast. Today we're presented by In the Clutch Apparel. Go to intheclutch.com. You're going to use the code SPORTSSTOVE and get 10% off your licensed baseball apparel. Intheclutch.com, the newest addition to the Belly Up Media family, and we're excited to be a part of that as well. So go to intheclutch.com, check out all the t-shirts that they've got, sweatshirts, things like that as well. Again, licensed apparel from Major League Baseball and the athletes, as well as other leagues. They're expanding into other leagues here shortly, but nonetheless, go there, use the code SPORTSSTOVE, get 10% off your purchase, and you will not regret it. Welcome into a new edition. This is a Monday edition of the Sports Stove Podcast. I am joined, as I am most Mondays, by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, you doing all right today?
Doing good. Lot going on. So
yeah, probably should have had Mom on for Mother's Day, but we'll stick with Dad. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there as well. Dad, it's funny. I was doing some prep work for the show, and there's just not a ton to talk about, honestly. There's NBA playoffs, there's NHL playoffs, there's USFL football going on, racing and different things, but it's kind of a slow weekend in sports, wouldn't you say?
Yes, as far as big things, of course, like I said, you never know. That can change in a day. All of a sudden, the way things go on with trades and stuff like that. And I think, we're still looking to see if anything's going to happen in football with Baker Mayfield and some of that. And then that may cause a ripple effect. But it looks like that may just wait until we get closer to training camp. But, yeah, and of course, you never know what happens, with baseball. We had the crazy umpire last week, and you just never know what's going to happen. So,
ain't that the truth? All right. The one that stays consistent is the Cincinnati Reds, still horrible. But outside of that, there is a lot of question marks. Let's start off with Major League Baseball topics today. And Chris Sale. We had a lot of conversation about him before fantasy baseball drafts. When is Chris Sale going to return? How important is he going to be to the Red Sox? Well, the Red Sox are sitting in last place in the East, and Chris Sale has had yet another setback with his injury and looks like he's still going to be out for a while longer. With pitchers, I always get scared the longer they're out, especially if they don't hit their marks to come back. And Chris Sale, towards the end of last season, looked like he was going to be back, and kind of looking into the new season, just things keep going bad for him.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, we talk about how will it affect the Red Sox. Well, obviously that's pretty easy to see at this point. So, because they are struggling, and yeah, you never know when, some pitchers just, snap right back and don't have any problem, but some are never the same again. So you never know.
Do you think Chris Sale being back would actually help the Red Sox?
Well, it wouldn't hurt them, that's for sure. But, I don't know. Maybe some of it, it might help just from a mindset, positive standpoint too. So, you never know.
That's a good point. I'm going to pull up some stats here from the Red Sox pitchers. Let's see here. Their top pitchers is Eovaldi, Pivetta, and Wacha. Actually, Halka started the most games, or played the most games. Sorry, not started the most games. Right now, Wacha is 3-0, win to loss. Pavetta's 0-4. Eovaldi's 1-1. So, nothing great there. I'm looking at where's their ERAs? There we go. Pavetta's over 6 ERA. Eovaldi just under 3. Wacha at 1.38. So they definitely have some decent pitching from Wacha, especially. Eovaldi's not been bad. But yeah, you definitely need some more arms in there. Let's see here. Looking to see Rich Hill started 5 games. 0-1, not a lot to show for there. He's under 3 in an ERA as well. But Yeah, Chris Sale could definitely, like you said, it wouldn't hurt at the very least.
And Waka just went on the IL, so
there you go. So more pain to Boston. I looked at the standings halfway through Sunday, and Boston last in the East. They Baltimore is above them now. The rainouts that have happened this weekend. Baltimore's played 3 less games than Boston, but so Boston 10-19, Baltimore 10-16. This is on Sunday. I mean, Boston's not going to be the last place in the East, are they?
Well, you never know. I mean, we expect Baltimore to improve some during the year, but we didn't expect them to be above Boston. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's Orioles playing doubleheader against Kansas City on Sunday. A win or two puts them right above. That's crazy to think, as bad as Baltimore is. But another team who's had a player that hasn't played for them at all this year, Robinson Cano and the New York Mets. The Mets decide to part ways with Cano finally going into the season. They're still owing $45 million, but they say, you know what, we don't need you. So they sent him packing, and without playing a game for New York this year. Is that surprising to you with a guy, especially like Robinson Cano?
Yeah, I mean, a guy that's had that, career. But again, I guess, the Mets are really hot right now. And I guess they got into a deal with roster limits. And you're surprised they let a guy like that go or couldn't move him, even though I guess he is later in his career. So, it was somewhat surprising for sure.
So Cano, he did appear in 12 games so far this season, 3 RBIs, 11 total bases, 11 strikeouts, batting 195. Jeff McNeil's been playing second base more regularly there, and he's had an okay season to get started as well. So, the veteran Robinson Cano sent packing, looking for a new place to play. I'm not sure what kind of team would want Robinson Cano right now, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that'll take him as well. You would assume would go after him, would be my guess at least, right?
Yes, you would think so.
Looking at these divisions, these East divisions are both, to me, the most intriguing so far. The AL East, again, you got New York, Tampa, and Toronto on top, all within 3 games of each other. Then you got Baltimore and Boston just kind of dragging along down there at the bottom of the barrel, so to say. And then you look at the National League East, and there's still only one team above 500, and that's the New York Mets, with Miami in second, then Atlanta and Philly, then Washington trailing behind those teams. So last year, the National League East was bad all season. They weren't good. They ended up getting a World Series out of it, but still they were the worst division in baseball last year. It looks like they're kind of following that up this year. And I'm surprised when you're talking about teams like Atlanta and Philly with the amount of talent that they have, struggling to get to 500.
Yeah, you would think Atlanta and Philly are going to make a move here. And again, we're pretty early in the season, so I would think, they're going to get in the hunt. Miami's been a surprise, so will they stay up there? It looks like the Mets are definitely the power in that division, but I would expect, both the Braves and the Phillies to be more of a factor before it's over. Yeah,
Miami, I'm not putting a whole lot of credit into right now. I mean, they're under 500. They're 13-14 as of Sunday. 6-7 at home, 7-7 on the road. Run differential's not that great, 109 versus giving up 100. Atlanta, Philly, again, there's so much talent on those teams. Now, Philly has pitching issues for sure, but they've got enough talent on that team. You think they've got to pull out eventually. Atlanta, the reigning World Series champs, they got Acuna back now playing. He's healthy and looking decent. I know it's early in the season, but it looks to me like the Mets, they're just going to run away with this division.
It sure looks it looks that way. But again, we'll see where things are at the All-Star break and, go from there. But right now they look like they have things well under control.
They have one team over 500. The NL West has every team at 500 or above. Still Arizona at 14-14, again, as of Sunday. San Francisco is 4th, but they're 15-12. Colorado 16-11, San Diego 18-10, and the Dodgers 18-7. Again, we talked about this a little bit recently, but it seems like this division, there's not going to be a runaway in the NL West. Everybody's going to hold in there and at least make Los Angeles sweat a little bit going into the playoffs.
Yes, it looks that way. It looks like by far it's the strongest division. And, San Diego, we've expected them to be good for a year or so, and it looks like they are. The Giants, I think, are going to play well, and Colorado's been a surprise. And with that ballpark, they can play well there. Like you said the other day, Bryant's out and he comes back. That'll only help. So, that could be a real fun division before it's over.
Yeah, CJ Crone, Connor Joe have had good starts to the year. Blackman has seemed to revitalize his career a little bit this year too. Last year was a really poor year for him, so he's pulling back around as well. And once they get Bryant back, that adds some extra power to them. When you look at the pitching side of Colorado, when I looked at them going into the season, talking mainly fantasy baseball, but I guess real baseball too, I said I'm staying away from every single one of these pitchers. Well, they've come out and actually played some decent ball. Cody Kuhl, especially in 5 games, he's got an ERA of 1.82. Gomber's had a decent year. Freeland's been okay. German Marquez, he would have been the one guy I would have looked at and said I'd at least keep an eye on him. He's having the worst year. He's almost at 7 on ERA as well. Then Senzatella has had a decent or okay start so far as well to the season. So with the pitching working out for Colorado, the batting's doing their job as well. In a very tough division, they're hanging around. And the NL Central, Dad, we said it from the very beginning of the year, it's just Milwaukee and St. Louis. Nobody else in that division is any good. Pittsburgh's in third, but they're 4.5 games back from St. Louis in second. The Cubs, 9 games back from the lead. Cincinnati, they've given up already and packed up and went home. So St. Louis, though, they're going to challenge Milwaukee, it looks like. And again, they're a team that's not healthy at the moment. But once they get healthy, Flaherty, especially when he gets back, I think St. Louis can make a run at the Central Division, even though Milwaukee should be the clear favorite.
Yeah, St. Louis seemed like a team that they're always going to be there, at least challenging. And like I said, they've got talent, and they play well. Like I said, they played my Giants here over the weekend, and they handled them fairly well. The Giants won 1, but so I think the Cardinals, you're right, and they've got some talent, some guys I hadn't heard a lot of when I was looking at fantasy stuff early. That I've got one guy on my team, and there's been some guys that they seem to be doing pretty well.
Let's jump over to the AL West. Los Angeles and Houston neck and neck right now in the division. Seattle, though, just a team that just continues to disappoint. I know it's early, but they're 12-16. They're 5-11 on the road. They should be better than they appear to be right now. And so far, I don't know if it's been luck or what, but they've not gotten things going. Is Seattle going to be able to make a push and possibly crack that playoffs? We thought they would starting the season, but looking at it where they are now, I'm starting to think that I think Seattle's not making the playoffs again this year.
Well, you're right. They've kind of fallen off. It looked early on like they were going to be good, and but again, it's early, so we'll see. Again, I keep an eye on some of those guys, and I have some of them in fantasy baseball, so they have some people that are playing fairly well. But overall, I would assume. I don't know all of it, but I assume maybe it's a pitching problem to an extent. But we'll see. Right now they're falling off. Be interesting to see if it looks like LA could be for real and hanging on there. And like I said, with the talent they've got, that's great for baseball, and it's good for fans to be able to watch, Trout, Ohtani, and keep up with them.
Yeah, I want to go back to Seattle's pitching. You mentioned it. Robbie Ray, he's at 4.38 ERA. Flexen's at 3.10, which isn't horrible, but not great. Gonzalez at 3.91. Their best pitcher right now is Logan Gilbert, and he's a big kid, 6'6", 225 out there, 136 ERA, 33 strikeouts, 4-0 on the year. So he's been great. But Robbie Ray's the guy they brought over to be that impact pitcher, and you're right, he's not been able to do it. But batting-wise, your guy, J.P. Crawford's had a good year. He was your old Philly source. Talked to you into him a couple years ago. But Ty France has been good. Adam Frazier's had a bounce-back season as well. Eugenio Suarez has been okay, not great. And then that Rodriguez kid. Do you have Julio Rodriguez in fantasy baseball?
I did. I picked him back up, and I've kept him right now because it looked like he's going to maybe have a good year.
Well, he's going to steal a lot of bases. He's the league leader in stolen bases at 9. If he gives you nothing else, he'll at least give you that right there. Let's see here. The White Sox are finally making a run back into it. They've won 6 straight. They are now catching up. They're 2.5 behind Minnesota. Cleveland is still under 500. So now you got the White Sox and the Twins battling it out at the top of the Central Division. We expected the White Sox to win that division. The Twins, though, have been playing pretty decent baseball here to start off the season.
They have, but the White Sox is kind of like we were talking about Atlanta and Philly. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of players. They should get Lance Lynn back at some time, and that will be a help. So, I didn't expect the White Sox to stay down, all during the season. And Minnesota's probably overachieved a little bit, so that should be a good race, at least between those two, if no one else gets in it.
Yeah, and Eloy Jimenez will come back from injury as well, maybe in June sometime. So you get Lance Lynn and Jimenez back, and things might look up for Chicago, but they're already looking up as they've turned the events around. One of the things that teams can consider to do as they get later into the season and as maybe struggles happen is to go up and call up some of your top prospects. And we've already seen this week the Diamondbacks called up their top outfielding prospects. Seattle called up a pitcher as well. Baltimore says that here by the end of May, Adley Rutschman will be called up as well, the catcher, number 1 prospect or 2 prospect in all of Major League Baseball, depending on who you look at. So it's that time of year for the prospects to start coming up. So, Dad, I want to turn this conversation to fantasy. How much should people be paying attention to the prospects coming up, and how quickly should they jump on some of these guys? I was looking, the Diamondbacks outfielder, he's batting 8th in the lineup, playing center field. Of course, you got the Seattle pitcher. And once Rutzman comes up, I've got him on multiple fantasy teams that I've just been waiting for him to get called up because he is, like I said, the top prospect, and he's going to play once he gets called up. But fantasy-wise, is it worth taking a shot on these prospects?
I think it is because, again, usually you have keep at least one spot on your team where you can move on someone like that. And, especially, if you're in a keeper league, then you want to, a prospect can help you for a long time. But I always think it's good. I mean, if a guy is coming up and has potential to get hot, have him. And, again, if it's just short-lived, then, you can do what you need to do with that. But yeah, I think at this point, most of the good players are pretty much taken in fantasy. So, guys, either a veteran having a surprisingly good year or a rookie coming up is something, you want to keep an eye on, obviously.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, especially in these deep leagues. Like we're in a 10-man league. I'm in a 12. Another one is a 12-man league. And you're just scraping the bottom of the barrel on these waiver wires right now. So if you grab a prospect and if he actually takes off. Now, last year there was the big prospect in Seattle, I think, and everybody was all over getting him, and then he absolutely flopped. So that may happen. But again, you're talking about the bottom of the barrel, so you can rotate some of these guys out, give some of these prospects a shot. I've been holding on to Adley Rutschman because he's a catcher. There's not a whole lot of great catchers in the league for fantasy baseball. And so I've decided to hold him, and it's taking up a bench spot right now. But I think hopefully it's going to be worth it once he gets called up here sometime this month. Any other baseball topics you want to talk about before we move on?
No, like I said, the Reds are the most consistent team in baseball. There's no doubt about that, to everybody's chagrin here in this area. But no, again, I think it looks like a good baseball season. Before long, we'll be talking about the All-Star game and the All-Star break, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, before we move on to the next topic, I want to remind people about In the Clutch. It's a new partnership we have. They are a apparel company. So, again, you get licensed Major League Baseball apparel, have shirts and sweatshirts and stuff around different Major League Baseball players and teams, some old stuff, some old retro kind of things as well on there. So go to intheclutch.com, use the code SPORTSSTOVE, you get 10% off your purchase. Dad, I also want to let people know that I've been a part of the Belly Up Media live sports coverage, and we continue to bring more and more live sports coverage on Belly Up TV. We have the playoffs and championship rounds of the NLFA, the Northern Louisiana Football Association, coming up next week, next Monday. And then, Dad, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this yet. We have just partnered up with another football league, the Northern Elite Football League, which covers teams up in the Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, that kind of area. And we'll be starting coverage of that league starting next Tuesday, or should be around 7:30 p.m. So make sure you go to Belly Up TV if you want to get some football coverage. And I'll be on the call there with my partner, Jason Cooper, and other guys as well there for those things. We're picking up a croquet tournament. Dad, you ever watch croquet on TV?
I never have. I played it a lot when I was a kid, but didn't know there was a croquet league. So
apparently it is intense. It's going to be an 8-hour, 8-day event. 8 hours a day for 8 days. And Belly Up TV will be covering. I will not be on the call for that. I opted out of that in my Belly Up contract. But we've got lots of football. We're going to be adding a basketball league hopefully soon, possibly some fighting leagues as well. So a lot of stuff going on. Go to Belly Up TV. You can find it on the FOXD network on your Roku TVs. You can find it on Tiki Live as well. There is a Belly Up channel on your Roku as well. So lots of places to find it, or on your web browser, bellyup.tv. You can find all those sports there as well. Okay, let's move on. NCAA, Wichita State, Dad, fired their athletic director because he was not doing enough with the NIL as the college wanted him to do. Here in where I live in Lexington, Calipari has made a number of comments basically saying, listen, we're not breaking the rules with NIL, and any kid who comes to us and immediately throws out that he's got to get a certain amount of money, he's no longer on our radar. So very bluntly putting these things, the Pac-12 and the SEC have talked with Congress trying to get some help on regulations. But, Dad, we talked about this when the NIL was first instated. Regulations, I mean, you already opened Pandora's box. It's going to be really hard to get this back. Boosters have taken full advantage of this, offering kids all kinds of money to come to the school, and it's just become pay to play. That's all it's been here so far for the most part for this NIL. Is the NIL any kind of regulations? Will it ever be fixed?
Well, they think they almost have to, but like you said, the problem is this NIL thing, from what I understand, is, set up on contracts. So, if there's contracts with people, then to come in and say, well, you can't do this anymore legally. The whole thing is, one of the big things with the NIL is it's become a legal type thing and a government type thing. The next thing that's going to happen in the next year or two is going to be a player in the NBA or the NFL getting ready for the playoffs, and all of a sudden they're arrested for tax evasion or some kind of tax problem, because these kids aren't used to having that. And of course, where their agent, they have people that can help them with the tax, but we all know people look for loopholes and stuff like that. And you're going to have kids, could get in legal trouble through some of this and how this is handled. Then all of a sudden, it changes. You don't have this kid. But I think, the contract thing will probably make it a little tough to straighten out, because some people are going to be, hey, I've already got a contract for this. As far as future things, you would like to hope, they're going to have to find some way to control, same way with the transfer portal, but the transfer portal is tied to the NIL. So, using the two together, they may be able to get some control over it. But, it'd be hard to go back. I've heard talk this past week about, is there going to be a salary cap on NIL? Well, that's kind of what you need. Or you have rules. The NFL was getting out of hand on rookie quarterbacks. So they made a rule that, all rookies are under a certain structure. Could the NCAA do that? Freshmen is a certain regulation. Sophomores are a certain regulation. Then it's different when you're a junior and a senior. They're going to have to come up with something, because it's going to it's going to blow up just left to their own. Right now, I heard a compare this last week. I'm sure you did too. It's kind of like they set a tax loophole that everyone's rushing to take advantage of before it gets corrected. And but I think people would expect some kind of correction to come. But will it be the NCAA? Will some of these colleges finally get their power conference? How will this work?
Yeah, I like the idea of the structured things that could encourage kids to come back to school. Oscar Tshiebwe is coming back to Kentucky. Now, most people had him as a second-round grade in the NBA, player of the year in the NCAA this year. But he's going to make $2 million at Kentucky next year to come back, and more than what he would have made had he gotten drafted in the second round of the NBA draft. So he's coming back for another year. He's going to make some money. He's going to play basketball, maybe improve his draft stock as well. It's all good. So if you have it structured where you almost have to reverse structure it because the freshmen should make more than the seniors in many cases. They're the name, the whatever. But if you do that where you have the freshmen get a certain amount, up to a certain amount, and so on and so forth, it could encourage guys to stick around a little longer as well. But I know the NIL stuff, it's sticky at the very least. And the boosters, you knew they were going to take advantage of it. And boy, did they. Some universities are taking advantage of it as well. All the smart universities are taking advantage of NIL, but some of them are doing it more legally than others. We knew this was going to be an issue, and you can't pay college kids across the board. You just can't do it fairly. You can't do it in a way that it's fair for each university and everything like that. The big universities are going to eat still in this situation, and you're going to get other universities that grab one or two big old stars here and there because of NIL opportunities. But I hated to see the Wichita State AD fired, but you got to adjust with the times too, right? Now, we're not talking about doing stuff illegally, but if you're at a school like Wichita State, I don't know what you expect out of an NIL situation there, because it's not like you're at Kentucky, Texas, Georgia, Alabama. It's Wichita State. I don't know what you expect the athletic director to do. Any ideas for those kinds of schools?
No. I mean, again, it gives even the smaller schools a chance for kids to make some money, which originally is what everyone said the idea of this was about. But no. And again, if they don't do something, like you said, they'll just, bigger schools will get people. It's really the same way with Kentucky. It's fine for Coach Calipari to say, well, okay, we're not going to go after them, okay? But, let some team in the conference all of a sudden get three guys that they could have gotten, or, is everybody going to be in agreement with that? So they've got to, everybody's got to get that. You get it back under control. And like I said, this has been going on for a while, but it wasn't legally. I remember a long time ago, I saw a highlight, and I remember when SMU in football got the death sentence, and I saw, I think it was a 30 for 30 or something like that. And I was so intrigued to watch that because I remember when it happened, but had no idea how that was. And basically it was just businessmen, alumni in Dallas decided, we're going to compete with Texas and Texas A&M, and they went out and got everybody, and of course made the big thing with Dickerson and got him. And when you heard the former coach talk about it, who later coached in the NFL, I mean, that was just bizarre. I mean, hey, I had a scholarship I offered kids and told them that, hey, once every 10, 15 years, I'd give this scholarship. And, I got kids that way. And I think I had 30 guys on the team at one time with that scholarship, and that was just the way it was done. So, but of course, SMU got the death sentence and have never really recovered from that. So, is there a way to control it? Yes, but the NCAA, as we know, has got a lot of problems. So they're either going to have to really, now what, you have the head of the NCAA leaving, so he's not going to do anything right now. And, it's going to be interesting to see if you do develop, at least in football, there's a lot of talk, super conference, 40 teams, let us have our own rules. And they'll make rules to keep it fair for everyone. Given that opportunity, they're not going to let one team, get an advantage illegally, ideally. So, but again, does that really apply to other sports? How does that work? Will it work with basketball, college basketball, and, same way with baseball and a lot of other minor sports?
Yeah, I mean, outside of your football and basketball stuff, basically it's the pretty female athletes that have a ton of followers already on Instagram or TikTok, and they're getting NIL deals because they've already got the following. But the football players and the basketball players, they're getting NIL deals to come to college. They're getting paid for the purpose. You come to college, and we're going to pay you. And it's just going to continue to be a sticky situation for sure. You know, I work cover EKU, Eastern Kentucky University, and as far as I know, there's only one player right now getting anything from the NIL, and it's not a big deal at all. So they're working on it, though. I mean, I've talked with the athletes; they're definitely trying to gain, but at this point, not a lot of success at that level. But we'll see how that continues to work. Eventually, it's going to bleed down into the smaller schools, and you'll see it more and more there as well. Let's see here. NBA, Dad, playoffs in full force. Memphis and Golden State are getting a little physical. You had the one hard foul that broke Gary Payton II's elbow and suspended. And now his name just slipped me. And I hate that. But suspended a player for that. Dylan Brooks suspended him, and then in the game on Saturday night, there was a play where the defender grabbed Ja Morant's knee. Now, it wasn't anything severe or anything from what you can see on there, but it's just one of those things where that's getting really chippy. Now, back in the day when you were more into NBA basketball, everybody was physical, and so that was the norm. This playoff, I feel like this playoffs as a whole has been a lot more physical than what modern-day NBA games have seemed to be, but I don't know. Have you noticed anything within the physicality of the NBA so far?
Well, yeah, I've been surprised when I watched it this year just to see. To me, it's much more physical, just a lot more grabbing and stuff like that. You're right. Back in the day, it was physical, but it seemed like it was a little bit different, and maybe people were prepared for it more. But yeah, I don't know what if the NBA can or will do anything. But you get a guy like John Moran getting hurt out in the playoffs, that kind of affects everything there. I mean, you like to see teams, battling hard, and you like to see rivals, but you just have to, they have to watch it from there. In some ways, some of the series seem like it's been very good basketball, been fun to watch, and very competitive. But you have people getting hurt, that's going to change everything there. So.
Yeah, it'll definitely change it pretty fast, you would think. Los Angeles Lakers, Dad, are in the hunt for a new head coach. They fired Frank Vogel after the season's done. They interviewed Terry Stotts, who's been around for a while, coached several teams. I talked about this with Parker several episodes ago when I had Parker Ainsworth on to talk about the playoffs and things like that. I just don't know who would want to coach the Lakers. LeBron is old. He's still talented, but he's old, and it seems like almost every coach that he's worked underneath has gotten fired. And so you got that. You got Anthony Davis, who's hurt all the time. You got a team that's just kind of up in the air, not successful, didn't even make the playoffs this year. I mean, I'm not a LeBron fan, so it's hard for me. I'm a little skeptical anyhow. But I just can't imagine a established basketball coach wanting to go coach LeBron, just seeing how all the other coaches have fared underneath him.
No, I agree with that. I mean, the Lakers are a storied franchise, so I think once LeBron is done or not there anymore, it'll be something that can be rebuilt, and you'll have players that want to come there. But right now, I don't know. Do you have other players that really want to go there, and play in that situation too? You've got a player that's running kind of the whole organization. And, I don't know if definitely not a good situation for the coach, may not be a good situation for other players. And, the fans aren't going to embrace it either. You don't make the playoffs.
Yeah. The celebrities show up. They're going to show up more for the Lakers than they do the Clippers, no matter what. But, I just can't imagine, you look at the NFL, for instance, Lovie Smith is coaching in Houston. They couldn't hire anybody else. So they went to Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith's been out of the NFL for a couple of years, getting back in. I think it's a good hire for Houston. I don't think, you get a young up-and-comer, I guess, but I think Lovey's a good coach. I think he'll do well in Houston. Now you look at LA and the Lakers and Terry Stotts again. I don't know. They've interviewed Mark Jackson, Terry Stotts. I forget all the other people on the list, but they're trying to get this big name coach to come in and coach LeBron. And the reality is LeBron gets coaches fired, not hired. And eventually then this guy will not last too long in LA either. The question is, how long is LeBron going to be in LA? We don't even know that answer as well. One other big sports event from the weekend was the Kentucky Derby, and a long shot one. We're going to give you a couple seconds here, about 20 seconds worth of the call. This is via NBC, by the way. Here's the call from the Kentucky Derby.
Side epicenter has taken the lead as they arrive into the final furlong. Sandon is coming after him. Epicenter and Sandon, these two stride for stride. Simplification down the outside is next. They're coming down to the wire. Epicenter Sandon. Rich Strike is coming up on the inside. Oh my goodness! The longest shot has won the Kentucky Derby.
There you go. Rich Strike comes along the side right towards the end and passes the leaders. He was the longest shot to win the Kentucky Derby, pulls it off. I saw a thing where he was purchased for $30,000. The owner won $1.something million. Had you bet $30,000 on this horse, you would have won $2.6 million and actually won more than the owner if you would have put in the same amount of money. But the Kentucky Derby is one of those events every year that whether or not you like horse racing, a lot of people will tune into it. Of course, it's a big deal around here where I live. We've got a track here in Lexington. Of course, Churchill Downs is in Louisville, but horse racing is huge around here. Everybody loves it, whatever. But to have such an exciting race in the way it ended, a lot of fun. And for me, it's always just you want to see the underdog win, especially in horse racing. He comes through and wins big, and just another eventful Kentucky Derby this year. Dad, any thoughts on Rich Strike and the Kentucky Derby?
Oh, it was interesting. We watched it. My wife always loves to watch the Kentucky Derby, not necessarily the 3 hours of the preface to it, but when you get to the race time. And so I watched the last half hour, 45 minutes. So I kind of knew, okay, there's four horses that, any of these four could kind of win it. They're up there at the top. And so it was real exciting to see this. I don't know a lot about horses or horse racing necessarily, but you could see this horse. I mean, once he started going, he just passed everybody. I mean, his speed was amazing coming up in the rider who had never been in the Kentucky Derby before. I mean, they went in between people, went around people, and once he got him, in the opening there, and you don't always, to me, see that when I've seen horses not that big of underdog, but you see horses maybe a surprise winner, but a lot of times they'll get out in front and they'll keep the lead, and then when they come around, the last corner, last turn, it's like, wow, they're still in the lead. Can they hold on? But you didn't see this kind of coming, except all of a sudden, isn't that a horse that's coming up from the back? And here he gets on the inside. And once he started to make the move, you thought he's not going to slow up. And of course, the Kentucky Derby, I think, loved it. They had their big crowd back for the first time in several years since COVID there. And, it was a definite surprise. And I assume it was positive for everything. Like I said, we talked a little bit before. I think the horse's owner was from, right around Lexington there, Versailles or whatever. And so I'm sure a lot of excitement around the local area about this too. And this will probably energize thoroughbred racing a little bit. Again, I think the jockey said, hey, anybody's got a chance. So we'll see.
Yeah, 16 horses back with about 40 seconds to go in the race. And he charged all the way up basically the fence line there to get the win. Exciting times. Maybe I'll reach out next time I'm driving by the farm out there in Versailles and see if they want to come on the podcast. But exciting times for sure in the area. I'm sure one of my coworkers was there. I haven't talked to him yet. We'll talk to him tomorrow. But nonetheless, it's a big deal around here for sure, and a fun race. Again, a good way to end out the race there as well. All right, Dad, any other topics you want to discuss before we close out the show?
No, like you said, in some ways, there's a lot going on, but a little bit of a slow week. Again, I've kind of come up with the hockey playoffs. The Predators had tough luck. What you need in hockey in the Stanley Cup is a hot goalie, and Predators have had a hot goalie all year, and he got hurt 2 games before the end of the year and hasn't gotten to play yet. So, and when you're playing the number 1 team in the league, that makes it tough. So I don't think they're going to be moving on there, but there's been some really good hockey games. And like I said, nobody's outside of the Predator series with Colorado, nobody's really running away with it. There's been some surprises there. So I think the hockey playoffs, I think the NHL would be pleased. And of course, there are a lot more on TV this year with ESPN, TNT, and even TBS, where you can watch the games much easier.
Yeah, Predators have been outscored 16-5, I think, in their series. You can call it bad luck if you want. They don't seem to fit in. Maybe if Juice was there, they would be okay at goalie. But it's been ugly so far for sure. One more chance for the old Preds to get back in it, but we will see. Reminder to go visit intheclutch.com, intheclutch.com. When you go to checkout for your first purchase, we get you 10% off if you use the code SPORTSSTOVE. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SportsStove. Remember, new episodes drop Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This Wednesday, again, we'll do a local hour covering Eastern Kentucky athletics. The plan is to have A.W. Hamilton, the head basketball coach, to wrap up recruiting and talk about that. We also have invites out for one of the baseball players, Max Williams, and one of the football players to come join us as well, Tucker Schroeder. So we'll see if all of that gets worked out or not, but tune in Wednesday just to find out. All right. Happy Mother's Day again to all the mothers out there. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Sports Stove Podcast. Until next time.